cameras on?
The opinions expressed on the radio program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Genesis Radio, www.genesisradio.com, Genesis Radio's owners, management, or affiliates.
Hey y'all, what's up, y'all? We having a little segment going on today. We're doing a little celebration of Juneteenth. We in the building. It's your boy TP Square. I'm in the building with the most interesting DJ in the world. DJ Rudd is in the building. You know.
Hey yo. It's your boy, DJ Rudd.
And we
the
got
most interesting DJ in the world.
And we got Sharif in the building with us. What's up, Sharif?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's up, my brother? How are you?
Oh, it's a beautiful day to be alive, man. We about to chop it up a little bit, man. And we was just in here building, you know. So we said we're gonna turn these mics on. We're gonna have a little conversation, man, in honor of Juneteenth, man. You know, so and one of the things we want to talk about is the message in our music. You know, one thing about us, when I say us, you know, the world. I mean, when I say us, I mean everybody, the human race, everybody. There's always been a message in our music, you know, and the greatest way of communication has always been through song, you know, because some people can't articulate things in a conversation without getting heated, upset, offended, you know, and they tend to not be able to receive it. But if you put it in a song or put it in a movie, people get to visualize it and receive it a little better. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to say something that, you know, in love, that, you know, most people in America are Christians, right? So, and you'll believe in Jesus Christ, right? So, you know, I would like to say that if we all show the love of Jesus Christ, it'll cover a multitude of faults. That's what they say, right? So we're going to try to stay within that vein, you know. We're going to show the love of Jesus Christ, you know, and it's going to cover a multitude of faults. But we're going to talk about the message in our music, you know what I mean? So first and foremost, y'all know who I am. I'm about to switch the cameras over. You know, I'm going to let the most interesting DJ in the world introduce himself and talk a little bit. Sharif talk a little bit, you know, and we're going to jump into the message in our music. So most interesting, you up.
Hey, yo, like I said, man, this is a message in our music show live on Genesis. I'm your man, DJ Rudd, the most interesting DJ in the world. And we don't talk about this stuff often, but when we do, we talk about it on Genesis Radio.
That's right.
we keep it thirsty, and we're not gonna talk all day.
No,
it's gonna be a stay thirsty, my friends closure. You know what I mean? This gonna
right.
be the part one of many. And hey, listen, it's a good conversation, man. Me personally, I've been DJing for a long time. I've heard a lot of music. I've heard the B-sides and all kind of stuff. And, you know, they say that when things are good, you just enjoy the music.
That's right.
When things are bad, you understand the lyrics.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? There was a lot of subliminals.
That's right.
That was lessons to us, and it was coming through music. And I don't know political standpoint at this point, but I think the realest lyrics I ever heard of the song was "It's cheaper to keep it." That's one song that was real. And if we all listen to that, we probably all have a little more brand out partner. Well, I'm not speaking for the team. I'm speaking for me. I know I'd be a lot more financially stable if I took that song to heart. You know what I
mean? I second that emotion.
So, you know, it's not a beat down session or nobody. It's just something to make you think. And now when you listen to these songs, maybe you're gonna listen to the lyrics a little bit more, pay a little bit closer attention because there's a lot of nuggets that these artists over the years have dropped on us. And we just was so caught up in the vibe and the beat, we wasn't really listening to the lyrics all the time. We might know the hooks of the song, but it's a lot of nuggets that they dropped in those verses, man. And it was really a lot of life lessons, man. So I would say that's the introduction, for what I would like to bring to the forefront today, using this platform. I'm gonna let my brother Sharif introduce himself and maybe give us a sample or something that how the lyrics hit you or something like that in a particular song.
Okay, how y'all doing? I'm Brother Sharif, and building on this topic of the music, the message in the music, it's a thing that touched me from childhood because I came up in the family, as most of us have, listening to Motown sounds, listening to Hey Hey with the Monkeys and all kinds of music that was out at that time when I was a young child. And what I noticed is that the music always resonated with me since I was a little child. I never really did understand the lyrics, but I stuck with it. And I'm an avid listener to the lyrics of music. So as I developed and got older, I was like, wow, these people have gone through some serious, deep experiences, and those experiences carried over to myself as well as others as far as life's experience. So I have to say that music, as they say, is the healing force of the world. And if we could all just take a step back for a moment and sit back and analyze these lyrics and realize what these artists have gone through throughout their careers, I'm sure that it'll save us a lot of pain and agony from going through and making the same mistakes.
That's a fact.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm gonna take it way back. I'm gonna take it back to the family. One of the first songs that I was a little kid that I heard that I didn't understand it exactly. I like the lyrics, but um, it struck me because I grew up in a 2-parent household, right? So you remember that song by Clarence Carter,
Yeah. Which
Patches, Patches,
Yes.
Patches.
Okay.
Remember, I'm going to Patches.
Okay.
My papa was a great old man.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You remember the lyrics of that song?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a song where it was telling us about how great our fathers were and what we saw them do, and how sad it was to be in a broken household. You know what I'm saying? That's what that song was really about. And that had a deep message. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, when I think about housing and the civil rights movement and the things that altered the family, you know what I mean? That broke the family. So in the 70s, and this was early 70s, I was just a kid. I heard the song, and I noticed that my parents and older people was really into that song. You know what I'm saying? Most people, when we talk about Clarence Carter, right, they think about stroking. You know what I mean? But that Patches was a deep, deep song. You know what I'm saying? Because there was a message in that music, a message in that song. And for me, that's one of those songs that it praised the greatness of a father uh, in rough times, of an oppressed father, who the world was lined up against him, and he carried the whole world on his shoulders, but he still persevered and he pushed through. You know what I mean? So when I reflect back on that song, yeah, my papa was a great old man. You know what I'm saying? So when I think about my dad, when I describe my dad, what do I always call my dad? I say my dad was Superman. You know what I'm saying? There's no other way I can describe my father is call him Superman. You know what I'm saying? And then when I think back on it, that song Patches, my papa was a great old man. I said, damn, you know what? It resonated, and there was a message in that music that carried on to this day. You know what I'm saying? So give me one of them songs that you think about, man.
Hey man, it's so many songs I think about, man, and now this is really not about me at this point. This is to me, this is a world subject. You know what I mean? Because what are my kids gonna be able to go back to and listen to when they my age, 20, 30 years from now? Because the lyrics today are not much different than the lyrics of 30 years ago. The whole music culture has changed. We hearing a lot of, well, you always got to build and destroy, but we hear more destroying than building in the lyrics these days. And it's really not even a balance. Like being as Father's Day weekend, Juneteenth, we got to salute the fathers. It's a lot of fathers that's fathering. They say life is lifing, fathers are fathering, mothers are mothering, and we kind of caught up in the matrix. But if we got to go, that's why the classic songs you hear. I bet you most young people never heard of N.O.G. and the Bulldogs, whatever. Be a father to your child, and all of these songs.
That's right.
That was made. These are not songs that's in rotation. These are not songs you're gonna hear on Father's Day. And it's like we got lost somewhere along the line. And it's not really our fault. It's just we don't have control of the content that's being released in a lot of cases, not every case, because some people are independent, but it seems like that music kind of falls on the burner and doesn't get the same marketing budgets and stuff as some of the other type of music, So there's clearly an agenda, being pushed because they realize there's a message in our music. That was actually a song.
That's right.
I don't own the copyright, but just for those who may not be familiar, you can look it up. It's a song called "There's a Message."
We got a message.
We got a message in our music. That was real stuff. There was a song called "War."
That's right.
And it was like, the hook was, "What is it good for? Absolutely nothing." There was songs like "Say It Loud," "I'm Black and I'm Proud." That's what the kind of the narrative was. This was
Marvin Gaye. What's going on?
Right. This was our way of venting. This was our way of venting, and even
educating.
And when hip hop came about, that was our outlet to tell our story.
That's right.
That was our outlet to tell our story, and it took off because a lot of people that actually never been in the hood but curious about what's going on in the hood.
We gave them a hood lesson.
We gave them the preview without them having to actually go to the hood
before they made the movie.
That's right. So that's where I'm at with it. And if you really just sit back and think about it, you'll see that this is a lot deeper than it appears on the surface. And so anybody in radio land or in media world, if you want to chime in on this conversation, feel free. Phone lines is open, 888-304-4401. And I'm gonna pass the mic. I'm gonna let Brother Sharif continue that bill because I know I can see he itching to say something right now.
Well, I would have to say that one of the songs in my early years that really touched me was Sam Cooke. That's the sound of the men working on the train, on the chain gang, and that song really struck a chord with me because of the simple fact, the melody of the song, number one, but the actual lyrics of what he was singing about and how brothers was really pressed to, slave and things like that on the chain gang. And I must have listened to that. I was at my aunt's house and I listened to that song. She had the album and I listened to that song. I don't know, it must have been about 7 times, the God number. And I was like, wow, this guy got a really nice voice. But then when I started honing in on the lyrics, I said, man, this is like a very sad song to me. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
And as I got older and I realized, what exactly he was actually singing about, as well as some of the others, another favorite of mine was Minnie Riperton, Loving You.
Mm-hmm.
And this was Mariah Carey before Mariah Carey.
Right.
With the high pitch. And I remember listening to her song, and I'm like, how could somebody, the voice was so angelic to me, when I heard it. And that's another song I must have played over and over, just listening to it. And my mother used to always say, why do you keep playing that song like that? I said, Mom, I like her voice. It was so angelic. I didn't understand the lyrics at the time, but now as I got older again, and I, circle back around, listen to the lyrics, I said, oh man, so that's when I realized the things that these artists were experiencing And love, you say, okay, you fall in love, but when you fall, you get hurt. And these are the things that was happening to a lot of these artists and their relationships with other artists, and they was able to use that pain or channel that pain into a music art form where it can educate us as we were developing, because these are things that we needed to know. Because for me, as you develop and you go into various relationships, whether it's friendships, relationships, love, whatever, what I'm saying, you're going to have your ebbs and flows, ups and downs and things, but nobody ever teaches you how to deal with the rejection part of it. And this is the part a lot of times that make individuals spiral out of control. So you have to come into an overstanding and an understanding of the lyrics that are being projected to you as the melody resonates with the soul, so as to get a learning experience from it. So if it's ever encountered, you will know how to deal in that situation without self-destructing.
Mm,
Yeah, that's real too, man. You
that's
know,
that's crazy.
another what I call a head bust, a two puff head bust, I should say. Wow, getting a little tongue twisted there. Was wake up everybody.
Mm,
You know what I mean? That song there said, "Wake up everybody. There's no more sleeping in bed."
Powerful.
You know what I mean? No more backwards thinking. It's time for thinking ahead. So that song there was so prolific that people of many generations remade that song over and over and over again, trying to get that message out to the people. You know what I mean? Sometimes the message get lost in translation, but the remakes, hopefully with a different beat to it, a different rhythm to it, but the message is still the same. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that we have to really pay close attention to. It's not all about partying and bullshit. You know what I'm saying? See, the music industry has redirected our music to not be educational. Like today, they're banning books, right? They're taking down, AI has taken over social network. 90% of all the posts you see today are lies created by, you know, AI and those six companies that control all media in the world. So I'm dropping this little ditty here. Most people don't realize that there's only six companies that control all the media in the world. You know, the beauty of digital broadcasting gave a lot of people a voice that we can be independent from those six companies, right? As y'all just heard recently, the United States of America government has shut down a very powerful voice that went around the world, which was called the Voice of America. All right, that was our way of being American and getting out our propaganda to tell our story of how it is to be in America and why America is so attractive for immigrants to come here, because we told our story about how great America is. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about MAGA great. I'm talking about how great it is in general, the opportunity that's here. You know, it's truly the land of milk and honey. And in my heart, I know that America is the promised land to me. I've traveled around the world and I got to see that if, in spite of all the differences that we have here in America, there's no place I'd rather be than right here in the good old USA of America. You know what I mean?
nah, salute to that, bro.
You know?
That's deep, man.
Without a doubt. You know what I mean? Without a doubt.
Yo, building on what you said, you know me. I'm at the end of the day, this ain't a feel good show, but I'm still feel good is in me. You know what I mean? So one of the feel good radio slogans, this show was all built on. Our slogan was "Get right or get left." Now that went over a lot of people's head too. But if you just slow down, and think about it. This is the time you got to get right or get left. And the reason I'm saying that after what you said, which was really deep, what you said, but I just like to see spot run it for the people that might have went over their head. So I'm saying from my standpoint, being a public figure, a DJ, a father, a husband. I'm saying I noticed that it was a lot more monitoring of what we were listening to back in the day. I remember my grandmother Emma, God bless the dead. When this song was out, my sister and I was listening to it. It was called "Let Me Lay My Funk on You." I don't know if y'all remember. That's when funk first came out. It was a song. It was like "Let me lay my funk on you." I caught myself singing that. My grandmother, you thought the hairs on her back stood up. She was like, "What you say, boy? What you say?" She said, I said funk. Funk. She thought I said something else. She was about to get the switch out on my butt. But now I don't see that same energy. We don't really always manage what our youth are listening to or our kids. Now we kind of in the age where you don't say something to other people's children if you see them out of pocket and stuff like that. But they actually was listening to what we were listening to. And if they heard us repeating something and it wasn't authentic or what they thought we should be listening to, they would G check us on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't see that now. I see now we so caught up in the everyday. We got work, come home. Sometimes you give the baby a tablet, and that's gonna keep them quiet for a little hour while I get the meal ready. It's more like we're not really paying attention to what they watching on these platforms, YouTube and all this stuff. We just looking for a little break. So school and all of this stuff, I was always taught that school was not a place to go babysit your kid while you go to work, really, and not pay attention to what the curriculum is. Like, school was just supposed to be an extension of what you learned at home. But if you're not learning anything at home, then school is the only thing that's really teaching you. And you're not learning much at home because time to get home, your parents is, you're gonna eat, you're gonna take it down. There ain't much time for training and stuff like that. So sometimes like these other platforms, like we say the phone, you said some real stuff because most people don't want to read now. Most of the information is coming off of, that phone, that device, that tablet, that television, or whatever it is. That's where we're getting most of our information. And it's kind of like Google became a higher voice than your parents. They fact checking us on Google. We telling them something, they be like, "Well, I Google it." Like, I'm telling you, I lived this experience. When did we lose our value to devices and stuff like that? I saw it with Wikipedia coming up. This is no chop on anything. These are all good platforms and they all have a lot of good information. But if grandma said if she could look at the sky, she'd have these devices. She could look at the sky and say, "It's going to rain today," because she was tuned in with Earth. She was tuned in with the world. She was tuned in with the weather. Like, they didn't have all this stuff. They survived. They grew crops. They knew the balance of how much water should go there. When did their word not become credible?
Right.
You're going to tell me because some musician said something is more factual than what grandma said? No, it's not. You know what I mean? And we got to listen to the ancestors. We got to listen to the classic music. Like I said, there's a lot of nuggets in there, and we need to really start listening to the B-sides. There was a lot of records that never was released. They only released that one or two songs off the album, but there was a lot more songs on that album. There was like 12 to 15 songs on the album. They only really banged out two. What happened to all the rest of that material? So if you're really a fan of something, if I'm really a fan of a particular artist, I gotta listen to the whole album. I gotta listen to the whole album, man. I mean, you can't read a book and just read one chapter and now you say, "Oh, well, that's the book." No, it was more chapters to read. But we're in a microwave society. We don't have the patience that we used to have. We want to pop everything in the microwave for 60 seconds. We want it to be done. But the reality is that's not where you're going to get the most benefit. You're going to get the most benefit from listening to the lyrics, not just the hook of the song because it's catchy. Listen to what they're saying, because not saying everything they're saying is actual fact, but it was their story. And most of these rap songs, these are people telling their story, no matter what it is, good, bad, or ugly. This is their story. So it's something to it. They didn't just write it because it sounds good. there's a lot of pain in these lyrics. There's a lot of life experiences in these lyrics. And then we do have the opportunists that just put something out just because it sounds good. We got to learn how to determine what's fact and what's just I'm doing this just because I'm clout chasing or I want my social media platform to have 1 million subscribers. So I know I unpacked a lot, but I'm gonna leave it right there for now and give my brothers a chance.
Yeah. Okay. Now, just piggybacking off of what my brother Rudd said, I'm going to tell this little story when I started working for the city because I didn't realize I was culturally colonized. And what I mean to say by that is that I had grown to love and respect our music. Okay. I started working for the city in the 80s, right? And at that time, it's a culturally diverse work environment. And they had me in the room with this white guy and this Hispanic guy, and I'm the black guy. So there was one radio in the room. So I come in, and right away I'm bossing up. I want to hear BLS. Okay. So the white boy tell me, okay, you listen to BLS, and then he'll switch it and put it on the white station. And I'm like, man, why you keep changing the radio? He said, listen to some of my music. I said, all right, cool. So I started listening to music. He put me onto the Doors and Kiss and all these other ones, and I really started kind of honing into their lyrics. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, yo, this is dope. So when I say culturally, musically colonized, I realized that music it reaches a broad spectrum of people, you know. So it's not just relegated to just, okay, black music, because you got all different ethnicities that is on the planet that you're going to be interacting with, you're going to be working with, and they have an experience as well. And he opened me up. The guy name, I don't even know if he's still around today. I think about him. His name was Mike. And he was one of these punk rock guys and stuff. And he kind of got me into listening, to their side of the music and everything and their experience. But what I was able to do, I was always good at connecting dots. And in connecting the dots, I seen that, our people was expressing, you know, their feelings about the social ills that was manifesting at that particular time in that era. And I was like, wow, Marvin Gaye, Smiling Faces. Smiling Faces is one of my favorites to this day, because these lyrics are still relevant when you interacting with people as you socialize in your little social networks and things of that nature. And these are lessons that you can learn if you really hone in on the lyrics, and they'll show you that you can interact with people and people can smile in your face, but that don't mean they're your friends. See, people have agendas, hidden agendas. So you can take these lyrics if you take the time to internalize them and listen to them and apply them to your life. You'll see that they have very much significance as to why those artists manifested those lyrics at that time. So I would just like to, pretty much end on that note with that.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, man, you just
Wow, right?
dropped the ditty on me because you make me think of the OJs, the backstabbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They smile in your face all the time. They want to take your place. The backstabbers. So there's always been a message in music, right? And it told you the good side as well as the bad side of life, right?
Facts.
But one of the most uplifting and empowering songs, there were two songs that came out simultaneously, right behind each other. One got major play and one became the biggest remix song of the era, right? The first one was Ain't No Stopping Us Now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That became the African American theme song. That was our anthem. That was our theme song. Ain't No Stopping Us Now. You know what I'm saying? Even when they went to that bridge and the hook at the end of that song, they kept saying, no stopping. They just kept saying no stopping. You know what I mean? So we not gonna go over all the lyrics of the songs, but y'all know McFadden and Whitehead, Ain't No Stopping Us Now, was the black national anthem. And I remember that song when it first came out, it was about 15 to 20 minutes long. You know, the version that we played, you know what I'm saying? And we could dance to that song all night long, right? And then right behind that song was another song that came out, same time, same era, was Kenny Burke's Keep Rising to the Top. The lyrics on that song is another one that's uplifting to us as people, saying that we got to keep rising to the top. That was feeding right off Ain't No Stopping Us Now to further encourage us to do better as a community, as a society, as a country, as a nation, as a world. Keep rising to the top. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many things in our music that was so prolific that if we just listened and did the knowledge, we would be all right. That was enough to uplift us, just like those old Negro spirituals, you know, when they was in the fields, you know, picking cotton, and they would sing those songs to keep them going. You know, it was uplifting enough that even though they were being abused and going through all these trials and tribulations, right? They had what we call the Negro spirituals. They sang those songs and it lifted them up and it got them through the day, right? So, you know, the music is very powerful. So I say that because I absolutely don't agree with 90% of what's being put out for music today, because there's only one message in that music that's being put out today, and it's one of self-destruction. It's one of destroying. It's one of degrading, humiliating. There's nothing uplifting about it. So therefore, the experiences that we had as children growing up with positive images, you know, to reinforce us, to lift us up. Because sometimes I often say that sometimes even me, I wake up sometime and I look in the mirror, I gotta remind myself that I am the shit. You know what I mean? And I hate to put it that way. And sometimes I say, sometimes I gotta throw my hand behind my back, grab my shirt and lift myself up, because society ain't gonna lift me up. Society's gonna beat me down. You know what I mean? So when I get in my car, I got to put the right music on, because the music sets the tone. Like for all those guys who got all them baby mamas and all them kids, and before you fell in love, what you played? You played some smooth, I love you, I wanna make love to you music, right? That set the mood, right? So there's a message in that music, in love songs, right? A message in music, right? So, and when my back's against the wall, I'm gonna put on some war music. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm gonna put on some war. You know, like if you catch me blasting some DMX in the car, you know where I'm at with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If you catch me blasting Brand Newbie in the car, you know what type of day I had. You know what I'm saying? You know, and sometimes with the Brand Nubian, I could go in either direction, because sometimes I just might be just saying punks jumped up and get beat down. You know what I mean? You know, and then sometimes I'm talking about dropping the bomb. You know what I mean? So music plays a major part in everybody's life, because we can close our eyes and not see things, but we can't turn off our ear gate. So what's poured into our ears, which we can't turn off, is going to help shape and mold us. You know, it sets the tone. You know, it creates a foundation of our logic. You know what I mean? So music is very powerful. You know, if you want to get a good message out, you use music and send something positive. Because if you take a bunch of little children, you put them in the room, and you playing nothing but positive music, they have nothing but positive thoughts. They're building, they're not destroying. You know what I mean? But if you playing something like, you know, what we hear today, you know, hip hop was our way of expressing what life was like living in the inner cities, right? Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, they had the message, you know. Duke Booty wrote most of that song with Melly Mel, and that told the story of living in the inner city, New York City inner city, but that's every inner city around the world. You know, every ghetto around the world had that same story. They could relate to that story. So that's what made that song so popular. and made it such a great song and a classic, you know. So when you hear about people talk about classic songs, you want to know how they became a classic because it related to everybody, you know. Mother's Day, we gonna play the Intruders. I always love my mama, right? And that song was made damn near 50 years ago.
That was genius. They did that.
You know what I'm saying? Right? So there's always a message in the music, you know, and we got to get back to that. You know, we got to redirect the focus of getting our message out because, like I said before, they're banning books, they are monitoring everything else. AI got control of social network, and you know, we are being herded like cattle in one direction. And the safest way to get the message out is to get back to good music where the message is strong and positive in our music. And yeah, I know some of y'all probably saying this dude right here. Yes, I'm that guy.
You that guy,
I'm,
man.
I'm the guy. I'm him.
That's right.
I'll
Yo.
be him.
Yo, let me lay my funk on you.
Lay down, baby.
I know Grandma man right now. But yo, as a DJ, right? As you elevate as a DJ, I mean, we all have the same milk crates with the same records or the same things in our hard drives today. Those who not carrying actual records. But part of what separates a DJ from being good or mediocre is it's an art to reading the room. You have to learn how to read the room, and you have to play to your audience. It's not about you, but sometimes even as a musician, you're not doing anything intentionally. Like I'm taking this for example because you made me think of something because I was DJ at a wedding, and my man, he married, his partner had more like a church background, so a lot of people that was at the wedding, were like from the church, and then he had his family, which was more like kind of like the street edge. So it was like a blended family, right? So they didn't really give me many instructions. They gave me a playlist, and then I'm doing my thing. Now, one song I used to always play, Hard Body. I played Poison. Poison always got the floor. Everybody, everybody rocking and rolling. Next thing I know, somebody came up to me and said, "Yo, take that off immediately." I'm like, "What's wrong with Poison? I play that all the time." The girl said, "A low pro hole should be cut like an afro." Really, Rod? And I was like, you know what? I never even thought of that because I'm caught up in the hook. That's another example. Like we not listening to all the lyrics all the time, and most people that wouldn't offend. But if you're not reading the room,
that's right,
and that might offend somebody that's deep rooted in their experience. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't mean anything by it. Mm-hmm. I'm just playing. When we say top 40, right? These are top 40 songs. Your go-to crates that always get people on the floor. These are some of the lyrics that's gonna offend somebody. But at the end of the day, I just say we gotta pay attention. That's it. We gotta pay closer attention. Everything that sounds good might not be good for you. And when they say all money ain't good money, and there's a lot of different cliche phrases out here. But if you really just pay attention a little closer, we learn how to read the audience in front of us, because if we're talking to high school kids, it's not going to be the exact same conversation if we're talking to adults. They might have a different level of understanding of what, you got to realize who we speaking to. So that's why you got to identify your target market. Even as a DJ, I have to pay attention to who's in front of me. Today, Juneteenth, my playlist is going to be to that theme. And some things it might not be appropriate to play today. So based on that, I just want to say, before I pass the mic, I just got to say today, guys, if you're in the area, if you're in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, within striking distance, the 5 boroughs, we in the 6th borough, East Stroudsburg. We at Courthouse Square today. We with Kwanzaa Mama. We with the Sherman Theater. We with a bunch of talented artists, local and from abroad. And we're gonna celebrate Juneteenth today, man. And my playlist is gonna be solid. I want y'all to know, if y'all gonna come see DJ Rudd, the most interested DJ in the world, and come see what we do here at Genesis Radio. I'm gonna pass it on for Sharif to make his closing remarks.
Okay. I just want to say this about the music as well. This is a historical part of it. Uh, there was a time when if you got sick, they would always come in. And when I say they, I'm talking about our foreparents would always come in, not only with the herbal doctor, but they would come in with the musician.
Mm.
Okay. And the reason being is the musician would come in and use tones to heal the body, while the herbalist would come in and give you the herbs to cure whatever ailment that you had at the time. Uh, the colonialists used the term witch doctors, right? But these were not witch doctors, these were healers. They didn't like they do today when you go to the hospital, you go in there to get treated. They didn't treat you, they cured you. But the musician was always a part of that, as well as the herbalist doctor that came in. So that's a little nugget about the historical fact and how tones played a role as well as herbs to heal the body, not to treat, but to heal. Now, with the digital aspect of this, I remember I got my first cell phone and it was a push up, the earpiece pushed up. That's when Sprint was out. For
Mhm.
y'all that remember Sprint.
Mhm.
Okay. So I had my first phone. I'm flying high. I'm like, oh boy, we in the new era. I got a cell phone. I'm in the rent car and I'm just, I'm gliding. I'm gliding on the clouds. So I remember showing my mom's, I think I had it in the car with me that day. And I was like, yeah, mom, I got a cell phone. You need to call somebody. I'll make the call, whatever. So she said, what is that? I said, it's a cell phone, you know. So I was showing her how it worked and everything like that. So she's sitting there, she's looking at me. And I get
Take your time, bro. Take your time.
I get emotional. Excuse me, audience, but she looked at me and she said, she shook her head. She said, let me tell you something. She said that all may be nice, all well and fine. She said, but you have to learn to do things the old fashioned way.
Mm. Mm, mm, mm.
So I looked at her, because I'm all caught up in my ego. And she said, all this new stuff coming out now, she said, it may be nice. She said, but I'm telling you, she said, you do things the old fashioned way. And I said, okay. So I let it kind of fly over my head and everything like that because I was in my moment, in my space, doing my thing at that time. But as I developed, eventually my mother made the transition and I reflected on all the things that she shared with me and imparted and imbued in me. And I said, now I get it. Now I get it because now I see how the technology is actually being used, to literally imprison you. They're tracking everything and things of this nature. All this little foolishness. Technology is a beautiful thing, but it depends on the hands of whom the technology is in and how they use it. And my experience, I'm seeing everywhere I go now, all of a sudden, you go in the store, you can't make a purchase without these people wanting your phone numbers and your personal information. Like, I didn't come from a world like that. You go in the store, you got cash, you buy what you buy, you pay them cash, and that's it. Now people are just willingly giving out their personal phone numbers, giving out social security numbers. I had to reflect, like, what type of world are we really living in? Is this a free world or is it not? Because it seems like everything is intelligence gathering on people. And my mind went back to what my mother shared with me. And I said, man, you know, this was a brilliant woman because even though we didn't have a lot, but the mother wits,
Mm.
the mother wits. If you pay attention to the mother wits, you're not going to go wrong. And unfortunately, now the mothers of today, they have chosen now to go in the direction with the Mae Wests, the Betty Boots, and so forth. As far as their appearance, they don't have no respect for it in terms of how they're carrying their family's last name when they go out into the world. I didn't come from a place like that. And I see the deterioration in our people. And it has to stop. It has to stop. We have to come back to some type of civility and humanity because our people are totally out of cosmic alignment. And we have to come back because if not, we're going to be destroyed as a people. And our ancestors didn't go through and suffer through what they suffered through and went through for us to turn around and become fools. We have to take the lead and initiative. They already laid the foundation through the music. They laid the foundation, if you just listen. But now, okay, fast forward, they done changed the lyrics now. Everything is more derogatory. So now your behavior is mirroring the lyrics that's derogatory. You're not doing no critical thinking. And it's a disservice to your family and your nation. And we have to come back at some point in time. And on that note, I'm going to conclude and thank you for listening to me.
Wow.
Wow, that was deep, man. Hey, brother, I appreciate your testimony, man, because that right there hit home. You know what I mean? Because guess what?
That's true.
When you get that wisdom from your parent or from any elder and it sticks to you like glue, you know it's real. You know what I mean? You know it's real. So that is the greatest education we can ever get. Something that's been passed down, you know, and it's nothing like a hand me down. No matter what it is, no matter what it is, it's not like a hand me down, man.
Fact.
You know what I mean? No, because listen, everything comes back in style, right? Everything that's motivated comes back around, you know. So even when they, you know, do when you face with negative things, right? People do negative things and bad things happen to you, you know, uh, karma is gonna pay you a visit one way or the other. Everything you do gonna find you somehow. It's gonna come back around, you know. And when it comes around, then it's your turn to throw the duck into the dog pound. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it that way, but that's your opportunity. You know what I'm saying? So in life, we got to be prepared for the opportunities. We have to have a attentive ear when there's an instructive tongue speaking. You know, and we have to have a faithful breast. You know, we got to hold to heart. You know, and sometimes we have to share our knowledge with people because what we're doing here today is we talking about the message of the music and life in general, right? And how if you don't pour positive things into people, you're not going to get positive things out of people. If you continue to pour into negativity, like today's music, murder, death, kill, you know, promiscuity, prostitution, drug abuse, if that's all you hear in your music, what are the kids going to do? Because they can't turn their ear gate off. That is their greatest teacher. You know what I'm saying? Your parent is your first teacher and should be your greatest teacher. But once you get outside the household and you begin to experience life and hear things that's put out in the media music that's put out there, that message is what sticks to you. You know, like I said, we had messages in our music, and now we got a lot of music where women call themselves baddies. I don't know a baddie that got a husband, right? They call themselves, willingly call themselves bitches and hoes. They are twerking like it's something to be proud of. You know, they're walking outside in lingerie. You know, um, how did that happen? Because of the message in their music, what they were listening to. Because there's no other greater teacher than music. If you put something positive in music, everybody gonna sing the song, and they're gonna learn that lesson, just like they learned the lyrics to that song. You know, they got that line dance. Where them fans at? Everybody want to slap and bang a fan. What's the significance of that? What's the significance of that song? Absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? So let's pay attention to all the distractions, right? Let's get back to building, not destroying. And I think the first thing that we need to do is go back to the message in our music, because our music reach millions, if not billions, of people every day. Every day. You know, Donald Trump used the term fake news, right? Well, if you keep putting out fake news, you tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth, right? So, you know, nobody believes a lie but a liar, you know? So we got to get back to doing what we do. And with that, we're going to wrap this up here.
One closing remark. Because Atomic Dog has officially turned into I'm a dog, not a mutt.
How about that?
How about that? And that's kind of how this conversation started. Because I was like, hold up. Atomic Dog. Atomic Dog. He's like nothing but the dog in me. That turned into I'm a dog, not a mutt. And that ain't no chop. Both great songs. But it's just showing how the lyrical content is spent and the messages in both of those songs. It's a lot of examples. That's just the most recent one I thought of. But I like to end it like that. Feel good, get right or get left. And man, this was an incredible segment, and I can't wait till we do part 2, fellas.
Part 2 coming up soon.
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Just in closing, that song "Boots on the Ground" is a big hit, but Washington is really showing you what Boots on the Ground is really about.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you're not careful with these lyrics that are coming out, because a lot of times they circle back around and come to bite you in the behind. So just pay attention, do your due diligence, because in Washington they really got boots on the ground.
That's right, y'all. With that, we're going to sign off. We're going to pick up on it before we drop it. We're going to catch y'all on the next